So the Goliath task before the visionaries that Lucius so aptly described was hard to compare to anything else besides potentially the construction itself. So not only are we fortunate that Lucius was able to articulate the Goliath task involved with the enablement, working through the General Assembly, but also all of the related activities and due diligence to be able to issue the bonds to make this vision a reality. And then comes the construction. Overall, we're very fortunate to have the Lieutenant Governor with us today. Ralph S. Northam was born and raised in Anancock on Virginia's Eastern Shore. He actually grew up working on the Bay before attending Virginia Military Institute, where he graduated with distinction. After graduating thereafter from Eastern Virginia Medical School, Ralph served 8 years active duty in the U.S. Army, rising to the rank of major. Upon his return from treating soldiers injured in Desert Storm, Ralph began practicing pediatric neurology at Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters right here in Norfolk. From 2008 to 2013, Ralph served as a state senator representing the Eastern Shore, Norfolk, and Virginia Beach. In his capacity as senator, he worked with colleagues on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers to successfully pass a number of bills. These legislative initiatives included the actual prohibition of smoking in restaurants, protecting young athletes who have sustained concussions, and improving the health of the Chesapeake Bay. Elected Lieutenant Governor this past November, Ralph's top priorities are economic development, women's health, early childhood education and development, and meaningful mental health reform. As your Lieutenant Governor, Ralph Northam presides over the Senate of Virginia and serves on a number of the Commonwealth's boards and commissions, respectively, in that capacity. Ralph lives in Norfolk with his wife, Pam, who we're also very glad to have with us today. Thank you for being with us, Pam. And she is a longtime elementary school teacher there in Norfolk. They have 2 children, Wes and Aubrey.
Thank you, Jeff, and good afternoon to everybody. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. And just a couple of notes real quickly. Lucius, if it's all right if I call you Lucius, sure. We're good friends. I know we share a common love for the Eastern Shore and share a lot of the same friends. And I didn't realize that we also share one other thing, and that is I actually think your hair looks quite good. But my wife tells me my hair doesn't look just right either. So the other thing, Mr. Holland, just a house cleaning issue. When I came in, I was put back here in the corner seat. Felt like been put in a timeout, and I find that my Republican colleagues actually wanted me behind the screen. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I can tell you, I have been looking forward to this day. This is the privilege of coming here and talking and congratulating really the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel on its 50 years. And as Jeff just said, I grew up in Anancock. The Chesapeake Bay was literally my backyard. I have worked on the Eastern Shore. I was raised there, and I have played on the Eastern Shore. And so the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel has just been an integral part of my life for the last 50 plus years. So I thank everything that you all have done. Thank you for all that. I would like to take just a quick note, Jeff, and Jeff Holland, if it's okay if I call you Jeff. Jeff and I go back a long ways, and what a wonderful job he has done as the Chief Executive Officer of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. And I'd also like to thank the Commission, Freddie Stant, your leadership, all that you all do, and I know it's on a volunteer basis, but it means so much. And to all those that were past commissioners and past chairmen, thank you all for what you've done. We wouldn't be standing here without your hard work. I would also like to just take a quick minute and thank our governor. I know he has left, and Secretary Aubrey Lane and Karen Jackson. You all are doing wonderful work. But it was good to have the governor here, and he does care deeply. And I can tell you that one of our chief responsibilities of being governor and lieutenant governor is economic development. That is what it's all about. Bringing jobs to Virginia, keeping good businesses here, bringing new manufacturers here, and there's no better place to start that than on the Eastern Shore. We certainly have our challenges over there. So it was good to have him here today. We traveled around and had some tours and really showed him what the Eastern Shore is all about. Truly, I did remind him that it is the only God's country, truly, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But when we talk about economic development and what this Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel has done for the Eastern Shore, we could start up in the northern part of Accomack County with NASA Wallops. We have the agriculture industry, which contributes so much to the Commonwealth of Virginia, the aquaculture industry now, the growing of clams and oysters. Something that I need to mention, and we were talking earlier, the tourism industry. What would we do without the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel? That has been such an important part of moving forward on the Eastern Shore. So it was good to have him here today. I have to admit, if you look at your program, and maybe I should have told you this a little bit earlier, I am supposed to talk about early construction. Well, just like you, Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to go a little bit off script if you don't mind, but I went to VMI, which is an engineering school, but I know what that might be. I've had this happen before, so it's okay. That means the hospital is paging me. So, but anyway, I did go to VMI, and it was an engineering school, but I'm a biology major, and I'm a physician, so I know not much about construction other than I like good roads so that the ambulance can bring the patients to our hospital. So I just wanted to, talk a little bit about some of the stories that I read. And by the way, what a great article that was in the Virginia Pilot on Sunday. And Mr. Forster, that excellent work for that, and it just really put everything in perspective. But it was enjoyable seeing some of the stories. One of my favorites is actually the poor fellow, unfortunate fellow rather, that was on a crane in the freezing cold and became hypothermic and had frost burn, and they finally got him in an ambulance and said that they were going to take him to the hospital, and he said rather than go to the hospital, he would like to go to the first ABC store. So I said, Lucius, that had to be an Eastern Shore person that said that. But I think back, what was I doing back in 1964? And I want to tell you just a brief story, and I won't take time from my colleagues up here, but on the opening day of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, my mother, Nancy, and her Uncle Ralph, another Ralph, by the way, who I was named after, wanted to be able to cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel on the first day. I was 4 years old. My brother was upset, Tom, that he couldn't go, but he was in the first grade, and Mom wouldn't let him out of school. But we also had a dog, our first dog, named Rebel. And Rebel was more enthusiastic about going across the Chesapeake Bay than anybody. And you might ask, why would a Labrador Retriever want to ride across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel? And so the story is that there was a minister who was preaching in Accomack, and he had this dog, Rebel, a black Labrador, that was to become our childhood dog for Tom and myself. And they were making a trip in September of 1959 on the Delmarva, which was one of the ferry boats coming across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. It was a hot day, but the minister decided that he wanted to go up on the upper deck, so he left the window cracked in his car, and when he came back, the entire glass was out of the car, and Rebel was gone. And so Rebel took it upon himself to walk to the back of the ferry, we presume, and he jumped overboard in the journey from Little Creek to Kiptopeak. And they thought that they had lost Rebel. 6 hours later, a minesweeper, a Navy minesweeper called the Notable, found Rebel swimming here in the Chesapeake Bay, picked him up, took him to Little Creek. Anyway, he got back to his owners, and he later became our dog. And Mr. Forster, I have the article here, just so you all can tell. This is a picture of Rebel, if you're interested. He was recruited by the Navy, put in a Navy cap, and the rest is history. But the moral of the story is that because of Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, no other dog since Rebel has had to sacrifice their life and jump overboard to swim to shore. So anyway, I thought that was a good story. And just in closing, and really on a serious note, I want to take just a minute to pay tribute to a man back in the 50s who had a tremendous amount of vision. He had a tremendous amount of courage, a tremendous amount of leadership skills to make all that happen, and that was Mr. Lucius Kellum. And without his leadership, this would have never happened. And I'm sure, just as there are today, and we deal with it every day up in Richmond, there are naysayers. When we come to the table and we have a good idea, they'll say, you can't do it, it'll never happen, we can't afford it. You've heard the story, but he was persistent, he persevered, and he knew the importance of this Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel for the Eastern Shore of Virginia and for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so for that, I thank your father, Mr. Lucius Kellum, for what he did. So thank you. On a closing note, and Jeff, this is what happens sometime when we go off script. I know I've been past my 5 minutes, but no matter where I have traveled in the world, and I have been around the world and back in the military, it is always, always such a good feeling and a good sign to see that sign on the side of the road with that white seagull, because when I see that, I know I'm just a little bit closer to home. So thank you all so much, and God bless all of you.